Ham old cheese. Ham old cheese.
In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
You're listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Uh-oh, guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
Oh, you magnificent bastard, I read your book.
I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
Good evening, one and all. It's Thursday, January 21st, the year of our Lord 2021. And I'm BZ. And you're not. Thank God. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spell it with a K, a mere 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast of the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento at 10th and L Streets, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense and its concomitant wail as it wafts from that putrefying edifice. And at the end of the show, when I exit the plush, resplendent, sumptuous, and palatial SHR Media Studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from downtown Sacramento. So be forewarned. What you're about to hear for the next 2 hours consists of my opinion and no one else's. And because of the fear porn that has gripped this nation, the saloon isn't open in the front, but I am still serving stiff drinks, facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, tradition, intent, and common sense out the back door. A reminder, you know what's coming next. We don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation. Politics, religion, crime, culture, race, economics, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the saloon, where the speech is free, but the booze is not. This is 2021, the evil extension of 2020. I'm done with bipartisanship and compromise. This is the new age of political warfare. Oddly enough, we'll be talking about that tonight. And it gets down to this. It's not Democrats versus Republicans. It's not really about parties. It's about right and wrong. Actually, at this point, it's about good and evil. And isn't it sad that I have to striate the United States into a group of persons who I believe are good or evil? Tonight in the studio, just like last Thursday, I have Lonnie Poindexter with me. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, BZ. Thanks for having me on your wonderful show, man. It's an honor and a pleasure.
It is always a pleasure to have you as well, sir. You can't see it. I don't know. Maybe you've got a computer over there, don't you?
Yes, I
Lonnie?
do.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Are you in the chat room?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Where do I need to go?
Okay. If you go to shrmedia.com, and the reason I'm saying this is, by the way, as I point this out, I'd like to welcome Jack Alexander in chat, Sergeant Booker in chat, Kate is in chat, one viewer who will not be unmasked is in chat, because we don't do that here. I will not unmask somebody here, unlike various other personnel. And also in chat, comma, Lonnie Poindexter, is Ralph Chittum's, comma, one each, which is why I find that very interesting. So thanks to everybody for being here tonight. This is almost my third show of the day. So let's see. At 3 o'clock Pacific, I listened to Unleashed Jeremy Hansen. Prior to that, myself and Jeremy and Kate had been kvetching about the state of the art. And so I listened to Jeremy. Then Kate asked me, Kate is in the chat room, Kate asked me to be a guest on her show. And so I was until about 6 o'clock Pacific when I had to leave to get things ready for this show. So I kvetched with Jeremy on Kate Krasuski's show. And so essentially this is my third show of the day. So thanks to everybody for listening live. Thanks to Lonnie for being here. And we also have another individuale who is Mike Fitzpatrick. Mike, are you there, sir?
I am busy. How are you?
Excellente. Now, this is interesting. I'd like to mention this because sometimes when I call people or people call me, depending on the phone line, sometimes the phone lines are good. Sometimes the phone lines are not so good. Sometimes they're absolutely terrible and or I can't even connect at all. However, because Mike Fitzpatrick is down in Southern California and Mike Fitzpatrick does his own podcast, Mike Fitzpatrick is speaking through his Rodecaster Pro. So just a note, you're sounding very good tonight, Mike Fitzpatrick.
Well, that's fantastic. This home studio thing seems to be working.
Isn't it great? I'll be moving all my stuff here into a home studio, which my wife has been kind enough to say, okay, you can put all your GURP in my living room. And so she was kind enough to clear a big spot for me because, as people may or may not know, don't know exactly when, but the SHR Media Studios are going to be going away in the not too terribly distant future. You know, it'd be nice if people could see Lonnie. There we go. There's Lonnie. And so thanks for being here, Mike. Thanks, Lonnie. So many things to talk about. What I'd like to do, and Mike, you and I have been talking earlier about you are a cybersecurity expert. So let me start with that. Tell us a little bit about the company that you started and what you guys do.
Well, first I have to say hello to my good friend, Mr. Poindexter. Nice to see him in living color there in the studio. But NCX Group is the firm that I founded just about 20 years ago now. And we're in the cybersecurity, information risk business. So our expertise is in finding the holes before the hackers find the holes in the systems. And as I said, with cybersecurity, business continuity, incident response, and we have a managed security operations service that we provide for small and mid-sized businesses.
One of the reasons that I wanted to have you on here, and tell everybody where your website is, by the way, too.
Website is ncxgroup.com. ncxgroup.com.
Okay, cool. So being a cybersecurity expert, this is the, I would guess, 6th or 7th time or so that I've had you on. The first time we got together, before we actually went on the show, you and I spoke for probably, I don't know, two and a half hours at length for some time before you appeared on the show, and we determined that we have a ton of stuff in common. But offline, you and I have been speaking, Mike, about what happened in the past. And the reason that I think it's important to speak to tonight, and I don't know how deep you may be able to get into it, is the voting machines that were used. Oh, BZ, here we go again. Can't you just get over the election and move on? I'm over the election. I'm way over the election, which is an interesting topic because I've noticed Kate and Jeremy and I spoke about this at length today on his show, on her show, and amongst each other is there are still people out there in the conservative world who are saying Biden is not president. Are you kidding me? It's like some of these people are still thinking that, you know what, come March 4th, because that's when it becomes official, not like it's not official now, some kind of deus ex machina goody is going to come like a bolt from above and save us all. No, that's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But there's still conservatives out there who are saying so. Folks, get a grip on reality. Joe Biden is president. That's the way it rolls right now. So I acknowledge he's president, but the issue that we confronted on November 3rd is an issue that I think, as my college professor, Elton Long, said, I took a law course, a basic law course from Elton Long at Sac State. Elton Long was about 6'7", probably used to be in football. Huge guy who would loom over you, and you never wanted to make eye contact with Elton Long. Because if you did, he would choose on you. He would select you and ask you to know the material. Speaking of material, he'd say exactly that. Open your blue books. And then he'd say, this thing I just said, you may see this again. Mm-hmm. Start writing and scribbling. So the election stuff that jammed us on November 3rd, I think we're going to see that material again.
Oh, yeah.
I think we can count on that.
So, Mike Fitzpatrick, I'd like to start with you, and then I've got a ton of breaking news. God, there's so much to go over. And I got some great audio clips. Joe Biden got pissed at people today, folks. Didn't see that coming. So, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about cybersecurity and how is it that these digital machines work and function? People are saying, for example, let me start it this way. People are saying that these machines don't connect to the internet at all. Is that true, or is that a lie?
That's not true. I think it could vary based upon configuration, how it's set up, specifically what device we might be talking about. But, I mean, it's no secret, BZ, in the cybersecurity community anyway, that these machines can be manipulated in a number of different ways. A friend of mine was the first individual to actually change votes on a voting machine, and this was featured in an HBO documentary back in 2008, 2009. Hacking Democracy, I believe, is the name of the HBO documentary.
Okay.
He didn't do it based upon the internet. He actually wrote a bit of code, probably 100 characters of code, and hacked the actual digital card that you slide into the voting machine. And he was able to change the votes. Everybody voted no on a particular issue, and this is all documented. Voted no, and there were 8 votes passed, and every vote came back as yes. In the trial, in the elections registrar of voters office. That particular same gentleman was in Georgia 2 weeks before the election, before the general election, and they asked him then, are these machines secure? And he said, no, they are not. So I think it's, if you go by my standard in cybersecurity, and that is if man made it, man can break it, that rule applies to these voting machines too.
In other words, and I've said this for a while, this is interesting. I'll ask you this question after another question that I'm about to ask. Would it be accurate, Mike Fitzpatrick, to say that no matter what it is, if it's digital, it's hackable? Would that be accurate?
I think that's a safe general statement. I mean, everything is, look at what happened with solar wind. That wasn't just a hack. That was a supply chain hack of epic proportion where they actually concealed the malware inside a certified update that went to 18,000 plus companies. And oh, by the way, the Solar Winds application and what they do is they monitor and manage networks. So it gives them everything.
Well, and the other entities that were hacked, there were
that breach.
There were a ton of them.
That breach is now extended into Microsoft. It is extended into CrowdStrike, FireEye, which are both companies. And most recently, Malwarebytes experienced an email hack. This week it was announced.
And didn't that hack also lead into, I'm trying to remember. Maybe, Lonnie, you can remember. DHS, didn't it go into DHS, DOD? It went into some government entities, did it not, Mike?
Oh, it went into the vast majority of them.
Okay. So whatever existed on a server in those databases, who knows where that material information is now? It could be anywhere.
It's important to understand what we call dwell time of a breach.
Okay.
A dwell time of a breach is from the point of execution of the breach to when it is discovered. That dwell time typically, even when you have a robust security program in operation within your organization, is about 370, 380 days before detection, from point of insertion to point of detection. If you don't have a program, it's closer to 500 days before it's discovered. So this breach, they pinpoint it back to probably sometime September, October of 2019. It then goes into full effect as COVID is breaking out. Shutdowns are happening. IT teams are dispersed. It is well documented now that because of remote working, which 60% of the country is doing because of COVID restrictions and shutdowns, that 30 to 40% of corporate security infrastructure has become less effective. So the effectiveness of cybersecurity has dropped by 30 or 40% across the board in corporate America.
These digital tentacles, then, have been crawling around in people's servers likely since September, and definitely by this time, who knows where that material has been sent around the planet. China, Russia, Iran, any bad actor, North Korea.
Whoever jumped in.
People who have teams and teams and teams of hackers working against us 24/7. But I remember distinctly one thing. The first time that I had you on, folks, we're talking to Mike FITZPATRIck, who is a cybersecurity expert. I've had him on the show any number of times. Owner and CEO of the NCX Group, a cybersecurity company that protects corporations. But the one thing that distinctly I remember from you, one of your first sentences when we spoke on the air was, you would not believe how bad the average corporate security in the digital world is. You'd be shocked. I still find that astounding.
In nearly 20 years of doing this, we've never had a company come out of it clean. Out of an assessment clean, I should say. We've got, in the public sector is not any better. So it is a challenge for everybody. Cybersecurity is hard. It is getting harder every day. It is the most complex business process that there is today. There are so many layers, so many connection points, so many interactions with the technology that can be exploited at any point in time. So it is incredibly complex. Businesses and organizations of all kinds are struggling with it. My new podcast that's coming out tomorrow is going to be on vendor risk management. The federal government has launched a new DoD, what they call a cyber maturity model. And this is what they're going to be judging DoD contractors on whether or not they are secure enough in order to do business with the federal government. This kind of mentality is going to spread far and wide in corporate America, and small businesses that deal with larger companies are going to have to up their game from a cybersecurity standpoint in order to get contracts with larger companies. It is how you're going to grow revenues. It's how you're going to stay in business. And these companies, these smaller businesses, the small and mid-sized companies, are going to have to up their game.
I got a great question in the chat room. And again, welcome to Ralph, Jack, Simone, the Alaskan, Sergeant Booker, Kate, 2 viewers who will not be unmasked. Thank you to you all for being here. But Sergeant Booker had a great question in chat. He said, COVID broke out in late 2019. And what are the chances that the COVID breakout and the digital hack, could they possibly be related in any way?
Personally, I believe the timetable aligns. I believe that once everybody started to go remote and work remote and we were scrambling, it created massive opportunity.
Okay. Let's see. I have a choice. Some new things came out today. Maybe I'll do that. I'll go to a little bit of news because some definite things were breaking today. So I think I'll start some of this. One of them is really, really interesting. The other one has to do, well, they both actually have to do with the GOP. And one of them has come to fruition. So I may as well start with this one. I was on Kate Kraszewski's show earlier this evening. And the guy for PSN Radio, who is her producer, brought this information to my attention. And my first thought was, no, this can't be true.
Stand by for news.
And apparently it is. I'm looking at this from NBC15.com. Georgia Republican files articles of impeachment against President Biden. The filing comes before the new president's first full day in office ended. Does that somehow sound familiar to anybody? Before President Joe Biden finished his first day in office and before the Senate trial of his predecessor has even begun, a Georgia Republican has filed articles of impeachment against the new president. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene introduced the new articles Thursday, today, alleging corruption by President Biden in his dealings with Ukraine, imagine that, and abuse of power pertaining to his son Hunter, all of which would have happened before he took office. President Joe Biden is unfit to hold the office of the presidency, she argued. His pattern of abuse of power as President Obama's vice president is lengthy and disturbing. So, question immediately now for you, Lonnie. Does this have a molecule of chance to it?
Interesting. I would say with the depth of the swamp, or the deep state, to be more specific. No, I don't think it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. It's interesting. Greene, who had her account suspended over the weekend,
well, nice to see it though,
has gained followings on social media, posting what the people here call incendiary videos and comments.
Ew.
Which I find interesting. Then there's this article. Let me see if I can get to this. Mitch McConnell. Oh, boy. McConnell wants Senate trial delayed. Donald Trump hires an impeachment lawyer. Former President Donald Trump has hired prominent South Carolina attorney Butch Bowers. Lonnie, does that ring a bell with you in any fashion? An attorney named Butch Bowers?
No.
Okay. I was just curious. He's hired this guy to represent him at the upcoming impeachment trial, aides said. So,
right.
Stop. If we look at, I think it's Article 2, Section 4, it has a very brief line about impeachment. And as I indicated in a show prior, regarding laws and regarding the Constitution, there's the spirit of the law and the intent of the law. And the intent of impeachment is to remove someone who is currently an office holder. The spirit of the law would be the same. Yet, apparently, we're going to go ahead and impeach, or at least a mock trial of impeachment in the Senate over someone who is gone. So I can see what would possibly, Lonnie Poindexter, the purpose be of an impeachment, even if it were lawful and they're going to push it anyway. What is the purpose, do you suspect, of that?
Well, I think the purpose is their intent on doing whatever they can possibly do to make sure that Donald J. Trump is never in a position to run for office at any time and at any level. You know, I mean, from running from city council to running for senator. And so all this is about them putting forth as much as they can to try to ensure that takes place. In fact, I posted something in social media that spoke to they are so intimidated by him that, and his ability to aggregate common sense America, that they don't want to see him in any capacity at any level. And so that's what all this is about.
Would it be accurate to say that they may have known something about Donald Trump, but when he got there, he truly pooped in the political pool, and I don't think I can get down to any more basic than he scares them.
Yes.
He scares D.C.
Yes.
They're frightened because they couldn't stop him. They couldn't buy him. Ukraine, Russia, you pissed in your bed, blah, 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 blah. It took a pandemic.
Yes.
To bring him down. It's like the War of the Worlds. Bombs, bullets, atomic bombs, can't stop them. They tried everything except perhaps an atomic bomb, and who knows, that may have been next.
Never let a catastrophe go to waste.
No.
Saul Alinsky 101.
And also, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to have to take a break here in just a moment, but is it not, Lonnie Poindexter, an accurate axiom to say in D.C. that you match words with words and actions with actions? Is that accurate? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be right back after this. I'm talking to Lonnie Poindexter. He is live in the studio. And also Mike Fitzpatrick. When I come back, I want to talk a little bit more to Mike about voting machines, what may or may not have happened, where this information went, what may have occurred, and then some more stories. And then also, if you guys who happen to be listening are interested in chiming in when we come back, it's 575-208-4481, 575-208-4481. I'm BZ. That's Lonnie. Mike is on the phone, and I'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Unleashed Jeremy Hansen, the most explosive pro-American podcast on the planet. Pro-MAGA, pro-Trump, pro-conservative. Come join the resistance. Fight for what really matters in America. 5 p.m. Central on UJHLive.com, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or MAGAbook.com. Come join the resistance and fight for America. Unleashed Jeremy Hansen.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. 1/2 hour is down already. If you would, if you're on Facebook, I think Facebook is running. Please share this. Hit like. If you're on YouTube, please share this as well. Share. Not Sunny. Share, and share alike. All over the place. Disseminate the show as you see fit, like little golden sequins and tiaras and My Little Pony, all of those things. Tonight I've got Lonnie Poindexter in the studio. Good evening to you, sir.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
And always glad to have you here. And I also have my cybersecurity expert. Oh, boy, I got personal there just for a second. Sorry, Mike. My cybersecurity expert. No, he's a great cybersecurity expert. Mike Fitzpatrick. The number, if anybody's interested in calling, is 575-208-4481. I had a choice of numbers to get for the area code. I chose 575 because, oddly enough, 575 is like, Roswell, New Mexico. And I figured it's kind of an eerie...
Of course you did.
eerie area code to choose. So that number is 575-208-4481, and you'll be routed through the servers in Roswell, New Mexico, right into the saloon. So you can give us a call on that number as well. Mike Fitzpatrick, we were talking about let's see, there are 2 companies, 3 companies, Mike Fitzpatrick, that manufacture voting machines.
Well, there's several, and you got to look at the parts and pieces that make up a voting system. So, I mean, you've got, with Dominion, for example, you've got
Dominion,
pads,
that's it.
electronic poll pads, you have tabulators, you have scanners, you have reporting devices. So there's a number of elements that go into this, and they all seem to follow the same path as far as how they're constructed, how they communicate, those kinds of things.
So we found out that whereas people said, no, these don't go over the internet, I'd like to have you either support or perhaps finally bury some of the rumors that I have heard, and perhaps a lot of other people have heard since November 3rd. Some people were saying that the information on the various Dominion servers went through the internet to servers someplace in Germany. And then I heard information indicating that U.S. Special Forces had somehow liberated the information from servers in Germany. I mean, things got really convoluted for a while.
Mm-hmm.
To your knowledge, to your knowledge, Mike Fitzpatrick, is there any kind of a need whatsoever for this information to be stored on servers overseas for, I don't know, whatever reason?
You know, I think that the real issue, BZ, is the fact that I think everybody, regardless of whether Trump won or whether he lost, whether Biden won or whether Biden lost, I think everybody wants a fair contest, a fair election, and one that follows the laws and election laws of a particular state. I think that with this particular election, based upon the evidence that I heard in testimony and following along, like a lot of people, I think there's real, genuine question. I think that the elements related to some of the election machines in question, I think there's a lot to be answered, and I think it could be answered fairly quickly based upon the system log on that network, on that voting machine network. Every transaction that takes place on a network, it generates a log. Think of it like an ATM camera. So when you go up to the ATM camera starts to work and it records the transaction, and they're able to go back to it at some date and time if they need to. Well, there's logs that are generated on these election systems. I'll leave a name of a company out of it. I'll just say election system.
Okay.
So we should be able to go back to those logs and see exactly what happened at exact times and be able to get to the bottom of this fairly quickly. I mean, it's computer technology. We should be able to do this fairly quickly. The concern that I have is you have a lot of folks that seem to be hiding such information and not allowing it to be seen by the public or investigated, and that's never good either. I mean, if there's a question, it has to be open. It has to be able to be answered, good, bad, or indifferent. We have to know the truth as far as what happened.
So it's not if a semi-skilled person, Mike Fitzpatrick, happened to have access for whatever reason to one of these machines, is it theoretically possible for them on site to change votes?
Based upon some of the videos that I've seen out of, Coffee County, Georgia, I think it was, where the election board was actually going through and showing how easy it was for a person on the inside to adjudicate votes and change votes. I mean, you can make it automatic. You can make it not address any of the down ballot votes. You could. there's a number of different ways to manipulate an adjudicated vote in this particular system. So that being said, it doesn't necessarily need to be somebody on the outside. It could very well be somebody on the inside. I mean, there are a number of different places, along the kill chain of this where it can be manipulated. I think Mr. Rasmussen and his particular security firm out of Dallas, and the name of that firm escapes me at this point, but I think they did an excellent job of documenting what started this in their mind back in 2018 with an election in Dallas, and they received some logs. As I said, the logs will tell you everything. They received the logs. They started investigating. They found some things that didn't really jive. The logs told them that there were servers outside the country. There's an hour-long video on this, and I think it's still out there online on YouTube. You should probably find it and go watch it for yourself and come to your own conclusion. As a cybersecurity professional, I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the detail, and it left me with a ton of questions that somebody needs to answer, because if we don't, we will never have a fair election again.
I want to play a 3-minute clip. This is by Rand Paul. And now that you mention Mike Fitzpatrick, now that you mention Texas, wasn't it Texas who essentially said to either Dominion or Smartmatic, one of the two, I don't remember, we don't want you, we don't need you, go away, we're not going to be using you?
It was Texas, it was Dominion Systems, and Dominion. Texas did not like the cybersecurity results of their testing with that particular system.
Okay, that's the same system.
So they kicked it out.
That is also, folks, the same system that happens to live in California. Always spell it with a K. I want to play this for you, Mike Fitzpatrick and Lonnie Poindexter, and then get your thoughts and opinions. This is Senator Rand Paul on basically how he thinks you can deal with election fraud, because if we lose confidence in elections, what do we have in the future?
It's been alleged that 60 courts have refused to hear these cases. Therefore, there was no fraud in the election. I guess another way of looking at this is that the court cases have been refused for procedural and technical reasons. When you see the 60 court cases rejected, do you think that's a conclusion by our court system that there is no fraud, or do you think that the court cases were primarily rejected for procedural reasons?
Right, Senator Paul, it is my understanding that the vast majority of these cases were rejected for rightly stated procedural reasons, as opposed to merits-based or substantive-based evaluations. That the argument is, I think, quite reasonable, and I think others think it's quite reasonable, that at least the matter should have been heard under the original jurisdiction. I think that's a key example.
Yeah, and I think it's important, though, that we look at this and understand what courts are saying and not saying. The courts have not said there wasn't fraud. The courts just simply didn't rule on or hear from the fraud. I do think there's an important issue here, though. The fraud is one aspect of this, and I think courts have historically been reticent to get involved in elections and to look at fraud.
Agreed.
But moving forward, we've got to change the rules or reevaluate our state rules in order that this doesn't happen again. We can't.
By the way, this is Ken Starr, who Rand Paul is speaking to.
Just sit by and say, oh, we're going to let it happen again. There is another important aspect to this, though, that is a legal aspect that I think does need to be heard by the courts, and I don't know if it can be heard beyond the election, but I think should. And this is the question of whether or not people who are non-legislators can change the election law. And this happened in many, many states. Probably 24 states decided to accept ballots after the election. 24 states decided they could mail out applications or mail out ballots, all without the will of the legislature. Do you think there's any hope for any of this being heard, Judge Starr, outside of the concept of changing the election? Is there any possibility any court's going to ever hear this and say that it was wrong that secretaries of state changed the law in the middle of this pandemic without the approval of the legislature or do you think there's no hope because it's mixed up in electoral politics? Judge Starr.
I think there is a possibility because this issue may return in light of this unprecedented use of mail-in ballots and the concern that is a bipartisan concern, again, the Carter-Baker Commission, that we need to look at these issues. And the Constitution is very clear that it is the prerogative of state legislatures to determine what these rules and laws are. And that was, I must say, flagrantly violated in Pennsylvania and perhaps elsewhere as well.
How can we watch at various precincts any number of persons, poll watchers, generally Republicans, conservatives, be forcibly removed from the interior of these buildings? Their job is to watch, and or they're not let in the first place, and people say that there's no voter fraud. That in and of itself just makes my mind explode. Then add in all the videos, all the testimony of all the various people. I'll just be blunt. Mike Fitzpatrick, was it a clean election?
I think there's enough documented information to say that there are some questionable results. I think Rand Paul's summation was absolutely spot on from what I've seen, from what I listened to, and in all the different hearings in different states, from Arizona to Georgia to Pennsylvania. I think that there are things that have to be addressed and fixed. I think you've got a couple of different terms. You have voter fraud and you have election fraud. Voter fraud is
good
small.
point.
Election fraud is massive. I think part of the issue, and I've talked to a couple of friends that are attorneys about this, and I think the science, and again, sticking with the science of this, we're talking about cybersecurity. We're talking about data forensics. We're talking about data science and the math. Math is not red or blue. Math is math. It doesn't change. Math is math. There's a lot of problems with the math on this. So you've got elements that are scientific in nature. I think one of the real problems in this, and we see this in cybersecurity and have seen this in cybersecurity for the better part of 20 years, and that is when there's a breach, we do a postmortem on the breach. We have to know who was affected because there's laws on the books that say we have to notify. From that, we're able to derive what the costs were for said breach. The average cost of a data security breach now is $7 million here in the United States.
Crap.
That's a breach of between 10,000 identities and 100,000 identities. That's not the big breaches that we're talking about. The problem that we have within the executive suite of corporate America is they don't believe the numbers because the numbers are too large. Even though the numbers are factual, they can't quantify that type of loss. I think that's the case with this particular election, the vastness of this, how many states, how similar it was, the sheer numbers associated with it. I think that, again, judges and lawyers are typically not math majors. That's why they became attorneys. No offense to the attorneys out there, but
well, wait a minute.
My attorney friends
that deserves the first one of this tonight.
So I think that this is akin to DNA back during the O.J. Simpson trial. The science is new. The science is difficult to understand, but the math, the basis of it is 100% spot on.
Okay. Let me throw this out, and then I think I will probably be done with election information. Then I want to talk to Lonnie about that. Okay, Mike Fitzpatrick, you're in charge of your local county franchise board, voting board, election board, and you are tasked with keeping things above board in terms of, I don't know, let's say you've got either Dominion or the other manufacturers in there. How is it that you could, as an individual, smart like yourself, noted in terms of cybersecurity, is there a way to keep things above board? How can you possibly go about doing that?
Yeah, and if I had the answer to that,
let me see if I can quantify that a little bit. You're in charge of that. Is there something that you do or don't do to ensure that other people don't get their darn mitts on it?
You know, the first thing I would do is I would probably send it out for some type of independent verification related to the security, or I would have a cybersecurity professional as part of the election board to help make a determination whether these systems are secure and ask the hard questions. I think in some of the election boards videos that I've watched online through all of this and understanding the types of questions that they ask, again, they asked, and DZ, you've heard me say this before, it's convenience or security. You don't get both. So their questions are always on convenience. Their questions have never been on security. Never. And any of the ones that I've watched.
God, that's a hell of a comment. That's an astounding hell of a comment. Lonnie Poindexter, any thoughts about the November 3rd election? You've been staying in D.C. for quite a number of years now. Have you heard from anybody, any information indicating that, above board, we're not going to talk about this because, the election went fine. But sub rosa, in speaking with other individuals, is there any kind of a chatter in D.C. saying, yeah, this is way messed up?
All of the chatter that I'm hearing, BZ speaks to folks saying that very thing, that this was, I call it the great bamboozle. There's other things I could call it, but trying to be a good Christian boy. And
True.
Not have to go to confession. And I'm not even Catholic, but I'd have to go. Yeah, everyone, especially those who that are close to. One of the things that I was blessed with in being there in the swamp for 8.5 years is with the election of Donald Trump, it put me literally, and I remember vividly when it hit me one evening, and calling a couple of friends, I said, you realize that I'm one phone call away from having access to the White House. And it just, it hit me. I'm nobody to speak of, I have a little bit of notoriety because of my tenure with Urban Family Talk and my association with Star Parker, but it just hit me like a ton of bricks. So saying that meant that there were individuals that I know, that I have relationships with, who have access to real information, and individuals like Mr. FITZPATRIck, who talks to me, when he talks to me about cybersecurity, scares the bejeebers out of me.
As well he should.
I don't want to know them, Mike. Just let me be stupid and ignorant.
I don't want to see the sausage being made.
Exactly.
No, I don't.
You mean that's what they put in the sausage? Oh my God. So the phone calls with them, they're all saying the same thing. The great bamboozle. Mike puts an exclamation point on it because he can show and talk technically about exactly what they did. what it did.
Lonnie, I have my opinions as you and I have talked about.
Yeah.
As far as how this got done, how it got matched up, but that's a conversation over a beer and not here.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would have you. I don't want to. Like I said, I don't want to know. So I wouldn't want you to share it on air anyway.
They will kill me that way.
Yeah. As a kid, when it was things I didn't want to hear, I used to go watermelon, 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 and put my fingers in my ears. But,
no, we would get BZ suspended for this for sure.
Yeah. So, but again, back to my point that those who had access, the things that they talked about, and to see the frustration, we knew, BZ, that they were going to come out swinging after the brash New Yorker was elected.
Right.
Because they didn't see that coming. They thought they had cooked the books sufficiently that was not going to happen. And when it happened, we know that Miss Hillary, threw a hissy fit, and as my good friend Pastor Mark Little would say, threw pots and pans in the bridal suite up in the fancy hotel where they were staying when they were watching the elections, and wouldn't even come down and speak to her people to console
she sent
them.
Johnny out to do that.
Yeah, they're all
Johnny Podesta. Go make my speech for me.
Make the speech while her followers are curled up in the fetal position on the floor. But again, stating, they were frustrated, and they all knew. No one. Well, maybe a couple people, but I would say that they were never Trumpers to begin with. So they would come out and see Lonnie because of this and because of that. And no, you don't have that kind of turnout at events, And we know that the press was doing whatever they can to suppress showing actually what took place. And being there in the swamp, I was able to see participation from those who were Trump supporters on the National Mall, the marches in the streets. I mean, you could see it. I was there.
So you did attend a Trump rally.
Oh yeah. And it was something to see. Now I missed the last big one because I was on the West Coast when that one took place. But you could see, and so the frustration point is, okay, we know there was a great bamboozlement. It's all going to come out. And then just as you gentlemen stated in your conversation, when the courts say, well, based on technicalities, we're not going to even hear it.
Yeah, me.
Yeah. Now here's a point I want to make. Folks out there who could give a rat's whatever, who don't participate, who don't vote, and so forth, and don't understand that for judges to do that, judges have an ideology that they follow. They're not supposed to. They're supposed to interpret the law.
Yeah, and they tell you they don't.
Yeah, well, we all know that's. I got some property and beachfront property in Arizona I want to sell you, and see them do that. It did something. I could say my phone would just ring off the hook with folks. Did you see this, Lonnie? Did you see that? Well, Michael would call me. Ralph would call me, and those higher up the flagpole, like I said, that have access when you'd have private conversations with them. What this thing has done is showed us the length of which they will go to win. There are no rules. We have rules on our side. They have no rules.
Yes.
So we have to play hardball. And I was just sharing, I think it was with Michael, and something I said that I think bears repeating. Like I said, I try to be a good Christian boy. And I love the parts in the Bible where you can see the common sense rise up. And David, who was a man that God says is a man after his own heart, said, one of his, and he wrote most of the Psalms, he said, Lord, break their teeth. I'm at that point. I pray for them. You're supposed to pray for your enemies, but I like David. David said, Lord, break their teeth. That's precatory prayer. And I think that's where we're at now. We have to do something I'd love to get Stanley Levy on the show because this is an area that he loves. Because he
well,
thinks.
let me add to it what you're saying.
Go ahead, Mike.
Because you asked the question a little while ago, and that is, with this so-called potential impeachment trial.
Yes.
Man, everybody is gnashing their teeth. How horrible this will be. How this, that, and the other thing. Man, I hope they open it up. Based upon the actual charges of the impeachment, I think it would give a full airing to all of this on a national scale. And there'll be a lot of people actually will hear this stuff for the first time. I don't think the Democrats want it. More importantly, I don't think the Republicans want it. So yeah, I think it's a lot of bluster. I think it's a lot of talk. But if I was President Trump, I would welcome it.
Okay, that's an interesting viewpoint. We got to go. Got to take a break. When we come back, by the way, folks, I'm BZ. This is my show. It's The Saloon. And sitting across from me is the lovely and illustrious Lonnie Poindexter, one each. And he'll be back when we come back from the break. Also, on the teleola phone is Mike Fitzpatrick, who is a cybersecurity expert. When we come back, there's a new article from the New York Post. And it also has to do with digital security and with social media. After that, I want to get into one brief article with digital security in an area that I bet most of you do not think of, and you just pass it every day and don't have a care about it. You will after this, I can guarantee you. That's Lonnie. That's Mike. I'm BZ. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. The first hour has gone like 25 seconds. I say that every show. So thank you for being here tonight. I'm BZ. Across from me is Lonnie Poindexter. On the teleola phone is Mike Fitzpatrick, a cybersecurity expert. I was going to go into another story that doesn't have, well, it does have some digital portents to it. But before I get there, I sort of teased a little bit about there's an area in cybersecurity that is absolutely critical and is actually, when you think about it, is really damn frightening. To my understanding, it's happened before with that form, and it's happened with a ground form. BZ, what are you talking about, dude? Well, there's a story. I subscribe to Air and Space Smithsonian. Yes, I had Smithsonian. I mixed it with aluminum and got another alloy. In any event, I subscribed to Air and Space Smithsonian, and I got my copy day before yesterday. This article was in it. It said, "Will your airliner get hacked? Meet the people who are making sure it won't." My understanding, Mike Fitzpatrick, is that an individual while he was on a plane, attempted to take control of an aircraft and did manage to, I can't say hijack it, but essentially prove that it's possible. Is it possible, Mike Fitzpatrick?
Okay, I'm quickly in my head reviewing my NDA on a similar subject. Okay, I'm going to answer and walk around the edges.
Okay.
Of this. There are avionics. There is an avionics company that makes the infotainment systems within airplanes, and there have been folks that have claimed to have hacked said devices in planes before.
And I think you're right. I think that's the way you hit it. I think that's the way that I recall the story went. Is that's the path that guy took.
The in-flight systems, and I know this firsthand. The in-flight systems and the info systems are separate systems in the plane.
All right.
There's a gentleman probably about 4 or 5 years ago that came out and said that he hacked a flight from New York to San Jose right before the RSA conference. And, you know, I know people within that particular company that makes those particular infotainment systems, and there's no way. There's no way.
Okay.
What does RSA mean?
What's that?
RSA, what does that mean, that acronym you referenced?
RSA is a security company in Northern California. It's now owned by Dell.
Oh, okay.
So they make a lot of the key fobs and things like that for secure codes.
There was a paragraph in this article that I'd like to read that was concerning to me. A gentleman who they had mentioned before early in this article, his 2019 claim was more serious. Having found on the internet a Boeing page showing some of the computer code that the 787 uses to run a package known as the Crew Information System Management System, he reverse engineered the code, he explained, to find attack paths. He admits that he could not follow the paths because he did not have access to an airplane, but he theorized that those vulnerabilities could allow hackers into the onboard avionics systems. This is a huge, huge, huge issue. Maybe I can summarize it this way and wrap this issue up because I'm running out of room and I still have a whole bunch of news stories that I want to get to. You're pretty well convinced then, Mike Fitzpatrick, that at this point, the hacking of an aircraft causing uncommanded pilot moves, the chance of that is zero.
I know that the companies that manufacture those systems bring companies like mine in to test those things.
Okay. All right. And would it surprise anybody, you or Lonnie or anybody else listening, that when you say that, this is me right here live going, oh, thank God. But I had to bring it up. I just had to bring it up. Now let's go to some different news. This just occurred today. This is from the New York Post. I was going to tell Lonnie this on the break, but I didn't get the chance. The headline is, Twitter refused to remove child porn because it didn't violate policies, says a lawsuit. Twitter refused to take down widely shared pornographic images and videos of a teenage sex trafficking victim because an investigation, this is a quote, didn't find a violation of the company's, quote, policies, a scathing lawsuit alleges. This is where we are today in social media. The federal suit filed Wednesday by the victim and his mother in the Northern District of California alleges Twitter made money off the clips, which showed a 13-year-old engaged in sex acts and are a form of child sexual abuse material or child porn, the suit states. The teen, who is now 17 and lives in Florida, is identified only as John Doe, and was between 13 and 14 years old when sex traffickers, posing as a 16-year-old female classmate, started chatting with him on Snapchat, the suit alleges. Doe and the traffickers allegedly exchanged nude photos before the conversation turned to blackmail. If the teen didn't share more sexually graphic photos and videos, the explicit material he'd already sent would be shared with his, quote, parents, coach, pastor, unquote, and others, the suit states. Doe, acting under duress, initially complied and sent videos of himself performing sex acts, and was also told to include another child in his videos, which he did, the suit claims. In the meantime, conservatives are removed wholesale from social media. Lonnie, Mike, is there any chance that we can somehow get a hold of social media at all? Section 230, any means, any manner, can this be done?
Well, I'll chime in first. I think that they are these individuals who are running these social media companies. They think that they, especially with this election, that they can't be touched. But if you see what happened to Twitter, based on their foolishness concerning the president, their stock price was hammered.
Oh, you're right. Yes, it has.
So I think that you can be so arrogant and so bold as to overextend yourself in terms of what people are willing to put up with. I also think, and I think Mike can chime in on this, is that technology being what it is, and I'm going to date myself with what I'm about to say. I remember a time back during the early tech years when IBM and even Digital Equipment Corporation were big boys, the biggies, much like what you have with Twitter and Facebook and what have you. And they miscalculated in thinking that desktop computing were merely toys, PCs.
Oops.
PCs will never propagate and become part of major networks. IBM said the world is SNA. In fact, Olson, the CEO of Digital Equipment, who were really the predecessors to where desktop publishing could go because of their mid-range size systems, missed it as well. It cost DEC, their company, they were end up being acquired by Compaq, and IBM, when they missed it, they hobbled for years before they got their act together and moved back to the forefront, but never like they were originally. I think the same thing is going to happen to these big tech companies because they're way too arrogant, and because they're rolling in lockstep with the leftists and the globalists, and then what's happening in Washington, D.C., they think they're too big to, what's that old saying, too big to fail.
Right.
And I think that's going to be competing technology, and Mike's, I know from chatting with him, is very aware of a lot of things that are in the works and things that are on the horizon that are coming, and maybe some stuff that we don't know will come. That's my prayer. is that takes place, and then we can, I'll just use the term spank them and put these boys back in their place.
Mike, you probably didn't hear it, but on Tuesday night, I had a great show with 3 content creators. And I had Eric Thompson, who's the creator of a new social media site called Megabook. And so I wanted to talk to him about that side. Then I had Ken McClelton on the show, who owns TECN TV, and his forte is video streaming. He doesn't do just audio, it's all video. And basically it's a 24/7 channel. He has a show Monday through Friday, and there are a number of other hosts that are on his TV channel. He goes through servers that are not, let's just say, like he told me, they're not here in the United States. So he feels he's fairly safe for now. Then I had another gentleman on named Jeremy Hansen, and his forte is podcasting, audio, radio. And we all got together and we were trying to figure out, with all the canceling that's going on, we need to craft a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, because we can already see where this is going. That having been said, Mike Fitzpatrick, it gets down to the servers, it gets down to the hosts and the platforms. Now that we have the problem out on the table, Mike Fitzpatrick, can you provide any options now, or that you may see coming in the future, where it's not so readily available for our knees to be cut off?
You know, I think the whole thing is an interesting question. I think if you look at the behavior of Facebook, Amazon, Twitter, Google, you know, through all of this, you know, you've got this kingdom that believes that they are above all things. I think every government official in the world is maybe a little concerned that they may be censored just like President Trump was, because the tech companies decided election. The tech companies want to also claim that they are a platform. Well, the telephone companies are a platform. So if we look at it this way, and let's say the tech companies, the telephone companies didn't like the actions of a Twitter or a Facebook or XYZ social media company, and they just cut off their internet access. Twitter, Facebook, and any other social media company wouldn't function if they didn't have bandwidth. So that's akin to what these other companies are doing to everybody else. They don't like an opposing point of view, so we'll just eliminate it. That's not a platform. That's an editor. That's a participant. That's somebody that's in the game. And I think that it needs to change. And I think it gets to a bigger question, you know, with some of the personal comments that I've received through some of my personal social media from friends asking, how do I get companies out of my life? The term that's being thrown around right now is, how do I de-Google?
Okay.
How do I get my privacy back? And I've shared some of this through my personal social media, and that is, you know, use Brave as a great browser. Go through and get off of Android. Quit having Alexa in the house. They're listening to everything that goes on in your environment. You have to make hard choices and choose security and privacy over convenience. Convenience is easy, and that's the drug that they lure you in with to this surveillance capitalism, is what they call it. And so I think that you have to choose wisely. I think that there's a business opportunity if we get into talking about half of the United States, to be able to supply data centers, servers, and compete against an Amazon or some of these other tech companies in providing those services to other companies that don't want to be held hostage. I can tell you firsthand, there are a number of CEOs after the events with Parler that are non-social media companies that were asking their IT staffs, how much of our business is on Amazon? How fast can we move? Those conversations are being held too within corporate America. They all thought they overstepped their bounds. They overstepped what they were there to do. I'm sure they violated a lot of their agreement in that particular case. So I don't know. I'm wondering a little bit, but I think it's a bigger question. I think that we have to look at building parallel things, and I believe that there's an opportunity to do so.
Sadly, that's what I said, and I've been saying for quite some time. Have we gotten to the point, Lonnie, Mike, where, as I've suggested for the past month or so, we're going to have to create a parallel universe, a parallel economy, a parallel everything for conservatives, because on every level now we're being eradicated and lied to, told that we can't do things, and then the lies are so patently clear now, yet we're told, don't believe your lying eyes. We're being gaslighted like never before. Here's a perfect example. Joe Biden, day one, inauguration yesterday. Today, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser says, I'm lifting the indoor ban tomorrow. Now, depending on which station you watch, on KCRA Channel 3 here in Sacramento, we're told cases. People are being killed like they're lining up like cordwood. We don't have enough nurses. We don't have enough doctors. Death. It's the plague. Muriel Bowser is opening up D.C. Cuomo decided to open up the state of New York. Magically, mystically, that occurred after it was that OMB is out the door. The guy with the dead orange cat on his head. It's gone. So, this was telling. Lonnie, if you know something about this, I would love to hear you. I want to play an audio cut. This occurred today. This is from Commie John. But listen carefully to the words and to the language that's being bandied about by leftists today and what they really have in store for you.
I was thinking today that this is the most relaxed I've been in the course
This is John Brennan, by the way, former DNI of the entire nation.
Many inaugurations I've watched because I'm not responsible for it, but I can tell you that when I was in the government, I had white knuckles because of the nature of the threats. But it's so much more difficult today because of what we have seen, not just over the last 2 weeks, but that certainly has riveted our attention, but because of this growth in polarization in the United States and domestic violence in white supremacist groups. So I know looking forward that the members of the Biden team who have been nominated or have been appointed are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we've seen overseas, where they germinate in different parts of a country and they gain strength, and it brings together an unholy alliance frequently of religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, racists, nativists, even libertarians.
Even libertarians. And until they were up to that point, I was thinking, okay, that's describing everybody on the left. Keep it going, John.
And unfortunately, I think there has been this momentum that has been generated as a result of, unfortunately, the demagogic rhetoric of people that's just departed government, but also those who continue in the halls of Congress. And so I really do think that the law enforcement, Homeland Security, intelligence, and even the defense officials are doing everything possible to root out what seems to be a very, very serious and insidious threat to our democracy and our republic.
So that's John Brennan, Commie John Brennan, who admittedly was a member of the Communist Party back in the 70s, who I suspect probably still is, but he doesn't want to tell anybody about it because that's Commie John. Not Tommy John, folks. Come on. Not Tommy Coppert. Tommy John. Lonnie Poindexter, was there people in D.C. about John Brennan and anything about him? Because I think he stinks and lies as long as the day is long.
Let me put it like this. The election of Donald J. Trump, and I shared this in my social media, I was looking for it as you were speaking. If it did nothing else, and it certainly did a lot, it pulled the scab back on that ugly, nasty wound, pus-filled, however you want to describe it, thing that is deep state or the leftist ideology associated with those whose political views are different than ours. And so guys like Brennan and Ryan and
Romney.
Yes.
Clapper.
Yes.
The ex-McCain.
Yes.
Flake.
Yes.
Ad nauseum. Murkowski.
Some of these individuals that are,
usual suspects
that I actually voted for,
Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
Oh, Liz Cheney is going to get primaried.
Yeah. It made them keenly aware to us where they stand on things like this. The fact that Brennan can even hold a position rather, and have that sordid background. Yeah, how'd this guy not
staggering?
How did he? Did anybody vet this individual at all for him to attain the position that with that in his past? And you can see in what's coming out of his mouth that, you can say, well, I was much younger and naive and didn't know, but I'm much wiser now. No,
I don't believe that for a moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so. That's what's lets us know what we must do. And actually, I would pose that question to you, BC. What is it that we need to do going forward? To Michael as well. What do we need to do if there's no integrity in our election process? Because folks, in 2 years we can fight to change. They said, well, if they cook the books with the election process, you can't even depend on the elections because they can swing it whatever way they want to swing it. What do we do? I mean, and other than get on our knees and pray to the man above.
I think there are things that we can do. What doesn't help is what I mentioned at the beginning of the show. There are still people on the conservative side,
right,
who are saying things like Biden isn't president. It was a fake inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
This was video of some prior occasion where all the this stuff is still coming, and
mm-hmm.
I rail against this. Q, whatever the hell Q is, did more damage, almost as much as the Republicans themselves, when people who are looking for hope and are willing to hang their hat on anything to be saved, hang their hat on something as nebulous as Q.
Right.
And I've told other people, stop with this. You're being like, here are the numbers, folks. Here are the numbers. Roughly 200 people, or I should say, parenthesis, all of them assholes, decided to storm the Capitol. The true Trump supporters were outside.
Yep.
If you call that protesting, their protests have consisted in the past of, well, we hold some flags around and we yell at Trump and we applaud and whatnot, then we clean up after ourselves. But the 200 people that did that, out of the 75 million people that leftists want to eradicate, comes down, because I did the math, but I needed a calculator because I'm not good at math, comes down to 0.0001% of the 75 million who voted for Trump.
Preach, brother.
And that's to whom we're aiming all of this heavy weaponry? It's nuts. Okay, Ralph and where is I got to go back up to chat. Ralph in chat made a great point. Let me see if I can get up to this in chat. Okay, here we go. I just found it. Okay, Ralph Chitums is in chat. He said the WHO, the World Health Organization, just admitted padding the COVID numbers by amplification procedures. Then he put out, Mamba put out an information, a link about stocks. And Ralph again wrote, the WHO now recommends a lower cycle threshold, which will lower the positive COVID rate by 60%. Biden will then take credit for curing COVID magically, just like Muriel Bowser said. It's a new president. The COVID will magically go away. And so Cuomo says it, but still California is still locked up. It's 9:30. It's 12:30 on the left coast. It's the next day. In Australia, I don't know what the hell day it is. I think it's tomorrow. In Bolivia, it's 1749 and 223.7. Locker 17, drawer 2, subcluster 4. I think it's paragraph 2 in Bolivian time, but I never quite understood Bolivian time. We'll come back right after this, and if you've ever heard this before, or if you've ever dealt with anyone who has dementia, as they begin to get wrapped up in it, and it is a terrible disease. I know an individual who, at the age of, when did it hit him first? 52, 53? And lived for another 5 years or so and then passed away. It is a terribly debilitating disease, but one of the things that you see from that is anger. Mm-hmm. Does anybody know anybody who's seen anger recently? I do, and I have the cut to prove it. I'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. He, she, and it are back. I am back. Hey, BZ, why don't you turn the camera back on, buddy? BZ, turn the camera back on, dude. Okay, there we go. It's time for the final 27 minutes of BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. The show to which you are listening live and direct right now from the SHR Media, the sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent SHR Media Studios. Tonight I have the absolute pleasure of having Lonnie Poindexter in the saloon, in the studio, live. And also, I happen to have Mike Fitzpatrick, who is on the phone as well. Let's change the cameras so we can see everybody. Come on, there we go. Good changer. We were talking about earlier. Oh boy, I don't want that one. I want to go to this one.
Easy. Can I share some good news with you?
Oh, I am always. Oh, wait. Hey, okay. Hold that thought. Because I didn't pay good money to not be able to play this every once in a while, okay?
It's time for happy stories and good times.
So Mike claims that he has something happy. So Mike, take it away. I'm dying for something happy.
You know, this is one of the good stories. Myself, I've been in Boy Scouts for 40-something years, and I dislike what's happened to the program. But there's a lot of great young men that I've worked with through scouting. My son is an Eagle Scout. Matter of fact, Lonnie was there at his Eagle Court of Honor.
Ooh, nice.
I just got a text message that a young man that I have known since he was 6 years of age just has been named an Eagle Scout. So I'm very excited about that.
Now, for those people who don't know, I happen to know that it takes a lot of work. I only got into Boy Scouts. That's as far. No, wrong. BZ, back up. I only got into Cub Scouts, not Boy Scouts. And I had a troop. God, what is it? No, I had a pack. Leader pack. Who's the parent? What's the parent called that's in charge of a group of Cub Scouts?
Den mother.
A den mother. Okay. I had a den mother named Wanda. God, I still remember her name. And she took me aside one day and she said, "Son, your mouth runs like a Victrola." And for those people who don't know what a Victrola is, look it up on your favorite search engine. So anyway, an Eagle Scout, though, Mike, takes a lot of work, does it not?
It is a massive amount of work. I mean, not just the merit badges, the service project, but your Eagle Scout project is typically just an unbelievable legacy kind of project. My son's Eagle Scout project is a trailhead kiosk. There were 465 man-hours in that project that he did for our city. And so they are exceptional kids, young men that earn this rank. It's typically 3% of all scouts from the beginning to today that have earned Eagle Scout. Neil Armstrong was an Eagle Scout. Dion Bluford, astronaut, first African American in space, Eagle Scout. Spielberg, Eagle Scout. Go down the list. It's usually they become very successful people because they know what hard work is and they don't shy away from it.
That's a hell of an accomplishment, if you ask me.
You can,
without a doubt. I'm so excited for one. It's not even funny.
Yeah, I attended Mike's son's becoming an Eagle Scout, and I got to tell you, Mike was more excited about it than his son was, and you got to understand his son.
Without a doubt,
his son's personality. He's so laid back. His thing. Congratulations, you're Eagle Scout and blah blah blah. Yeah, Uncle Lonnie. Yeah. Like this kind of thing. This kind of thing happens to me all the time.
All the time.
We have state assembly people. Melissa Melendez was there. Jeff Stone, who was county supervisor at the time, became state senator, was there. We had all kinds of dignitaries there. The young man, my son, didn't even spend any time writing the speech. He just stood up there and winged it, and it was spectacular.
He's so chill, and it drives his dad crazy. I get a kick out of it because, Mike was just a Boy Scout. Living vicariously.
I wasn't
through
even
his
that.
son.
Just a little bitty Cub Scout wearing blue jeans in the 50s with my cuffs rolled up.
Oh, yeah.
Because when little kids in the 50s and 60s had their blue jeans, moms would just roll their cuffs up because as they got older, the cuffs got let out a little bit more and a little bit more. Saved you money on jeans.
BZ, it was interesting. Several of and I taught a lot of the citizenship merit badge classes, and the number of calls that I got from these young men who were voting for the first time in this election was fantastic. I think I spent probably leading up to the election and explaining the constitutional aspects of things, because I'm a constitutionalist. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a constitutionalist. I think I spent 25 hours talking to different scouts, young men that were voting for the first time, and really wanted to understand the process and the way that they were digging into it. Was fantastic. There's hope there.
There is hope. There is hope for the future. We were talking about that earlier on the show with Kate and with Jeremy, and I spoke to on earlier this week on Tuesday to Eric Thompson and Jeremy Hansen and Ken McClinton, and we all agreed there's hope for the future as long as we maintain perspective and we don't embrace any more Q or Q-like crap in the future. I said back in 2004 when I started my blog, I said, you have to, even then, not even remotely envisioning that we would get to where we are today. But even back in 2004 when I was creating a blog, I said, we have to be good, logical, common sense consumers of news. We are consumers of news. And just because of the nature of humanity, I threw in, of course, caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware. You're the buyer. You're the consumer of news. If something to you doesn't pass the smell test, then go out and find some more information. Like a good journalist, if you find, well, no journalist does this anymore, but if you find 3 sources that you're, yeah, this just doesn't feel right, go out someplace else. Mm-hmm. I find, of all crazy things, stuff on UK media that I've never seen addressed here in the United States. And that's what'll happen here. That's what's happening now, and it will happen in the future, especially with Joe Biden, when this dude cannot even read a teleprompter properly. And he's up past 5 p.m., and things are not going well for him. That's the future of this individual. I talked about dementia. I've also said this before. I'm not pissed at Joe Biden. I understand his wanting to do this on good days. I am incensed at his wife knowing his condition, because you can't hide this. He has good days and he has bad days. I'll show you a bad day in just a second. You'll hear the audio cut. Why, if you love your husband, would you put him through this? Run him through all that stuff. Now, granted, he didn't have to run an election because you could say something similar to, well, we kind of knew how this was going to go. Okay, I get that. I'm moving on. We're going to have to figure out how we repair this whole voting thing. But why still would you subject, if you love your husband and you're not craven, why would you still subject your husband to things like this?
That's a great question.
I know about Joe. I understand he wants to be president, and he is. It's irrefutable. He is president. Kamala Harris is vice president. I grok that concept. I got it. But all through the process, when finally Bernie Sanders fell away, and then all the kudos and everything else fell on the shoulders of Joe, his wife, decided it was cool to continue to trot him out, even on bad days. You know, people used to say there are tons of compilations about, well, it's just Joe. Now it's Joe, and he's not doing really well, and it's like, the emperor's new clothes. No, the emperor's naked. You just don't want to see it. Gaslighting. Don't believe your lion eyes, or in this case, don't believe your lion ears, okay?
Is that high enough? Shouldn't you set the bar higher? That's basically where the U.S. is right now. when I announced it, you all said it's not possible. Come on, give me a break, man.
Come on, you guys,
That's a good start. 100 million. Thank you.
Let's go, Chris, let's go. Come on, you guys, let's go. Thank you so much, you guys. Let's go. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Please go this way. Thank you.
Okay, so one challenging question, and they usher Biden off exit stage left. He was asked if 100 million vaccines within 100 days is too low. And he says, when I announced it, you all said it wasn't possible. Give me a break. Come on, man. I think that's one in a continuing series of more come on mans coming. Then let the hypocrisy begin. It began on his very first day in office.
Some of the things we're going to be doing are going to be bold and vital, and there's no time to start like today. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm so proud of today's executive actions. I'm going to start by keeping the promises I made to the American people. Long way to go.
Okay, I had to stop this just for a second. Jack Alexander in chat says, I want to know what Joe Biden has been paid to put Joe through this. Power.
Yeah.
Absolute power.
Yeah.
That's the first that comes to mind.
These are just executive actions. They are important, but we're going to need legislation for a lot of the things we're going to do. And the first order I'm going to be signing here relates to COVID, and it's requiring, as I said all along, where I have authority, mandating masks be worn, social distancing be kept on federal property.
So then what we see is here's Joe with his family, and they happen to be out. Oh, they're at the Lincoln Memorial. And there's no social distancing, and there are no masks, and they're all together. Joe Biden, let the hypocrisy commence. So thank goodness at least you're consistent on that. Then there was this, which I thought was wonderful. An executive order from President Biden aimed at combating discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation stirs accusation of erasing the rights of cisgender women, a response that critics are calling out as transphobic. Okay, number one, good luck translating that verbal pablum. And number two, I've been waiting for this. Oh, let the civilizational, multi-letter, cancel culturing, virtue signaling, cacophonous, discordant, confusing, complicated, internecine wars commence with the Democrats in 3, 2, 1, go.
Preach, my brother, preach.
It's going. I said this also to Sean before the show. You and I were speaking, Lonnie. And I said Antifa in Sacramento today, because Antifa is the capital of California, always spelled with a K, so it's got to have its own bout of Antifa, it does, said something similar to, I saw this coming. Oh, guys, this is glorious. I love this. AOC is insufficiently left for the left. AOC now for Antifa is not left enough.
You're not left enough.
And that's, okay, let's see. What is it? That's as of January 21st, the year of our Lord 2021. The year is new. It's only going to get better than this. It's like the rule of holes. Nobody is yet getting the rule of holes. I'm sorry, I just happen to think that's absolutely stellar. So, on Inauguration Day with up to 65,000 troops in D.C. Well, Lonnie Poindexter, have you heard anything about the troops? I've heard it was ranging anywhere from 20,000 to 30,000, and some people were saying it had or could have been at one point up to 65,000 troops.
Yeah, I've heard numbers are all over the place.
They are all over the place. And a new story from Breitbart. I may as well mention this since I mentioned that. Thousands of National Guard troops will remain on duty in Capitol after inauguration. The National Guard said Thursday it's working to return some of the troops who came to Washington, D.C. to protect the inauguration, but that thousands will remain on duty. In a press release, the Guard said 10,600 will remain on duty for the time being to continue the mission of assisting federal law enforcement authorities in protecting the Capitol, because clearly the Capitol needs immense protecting on that front.
Or the cattle.
Or the cattle. And yet, following January 6th, everybody said that Inauguration Day would explode everywhere. Well, it exploded a little bit. Let's see. Portland, Seattle, Denver, a little wee bit in Sacramento, not all that much. Who did that? That's right. Antifa on Inauguration Day went to the Democrat headquarters in Portland, Oregon, broke windows, and as Jerry the Hutt Nadler says, there is no such thing as Antifa. Well, Jerry, if you know anything about Antifa and you look at the windows that were busted and the spray paint that was left behind on these windows of the Democrat organization, that building, let's see, what would a circle with an A in the middle of it stand for? Jerry? Could it possibly be Antifa? They said we are ungovernable. They said the F word to Biden. Well, I thought they liked Democrats. Well, apparently they don't like Democrats. All that much. Apparently not. CNN has said that it wants right-wing competition blacklisted. They kept the Russia thing going for a real long time. They said that CNN competitors OAN and Newsmax are a problem. And he's not sure we need Verizon, AT&T, Comcast, and such, bringing them into tens and millions of homes. Again, I have 40 tabs across my laptop right here of stories that I could go into. But with cancel culture, Lonnie Poindexter rearing its ugly face directly in front of us, and they don't care. Because at this point, they don't really have to. Do you, Lonnie Poindexter, think it's going to get worse before it gets better?
Oh, most certainly it will. They'll start feeding on each other.
That's the only good point.
yeah, that's a good point. That's when they run out of folks from on our side of the aisle that they think they can go after. Anyone that knows me personally knows I'm a motor mouth, but these types of things, I run out of words to describe. I don't know if you've experienced that as well. It's my frustration level, I guess.
You've said all the things that you think you can say,
mm-hmm.
Then you go to bed, then you wake up the next morning and discover that there is an entirely brand new slew of stupidity that's occurred in terms of all these various venues, issues, etc., organizations who want to remove you from civilization, up to and including they just like to see you dead.
Yeah, they do, and you never thought you would see it here, but we see it here in ways that we could end up being or becoming a third world banana republic, and folks don't seem to think. They think, "Oh, Lonnie, that's a stretch." But that's what I look at and I see in terms of the things that they're doing. When I spent time in Jamaica some years ago speaking at an event there, the conservative Jamaican community invited me over, and when I discovered that they had more freedoms than we had, I was blown because I made certain assumptions. And there was a radio show. It's Jerry Small, and Jerry Small and him man is the the voice of, and I wouldn't call him a conservative. He was a conservative, much like the way Donald Trump was before he, as he was elected and got a full dose of how bad the swamp is, and became ever more conservative because he was pragmatic. And Jerry that way as well. And when I was explaining to him things that I couldn't discuss on our platform because I was part of a 501c3 with Urban Family. And he's, man, you have no freedom, man. We have freedom here in Jamaica. We say what the hell we want. It's what I heard him say, and he's the largest talk radio show in Jamaica. It made me look back at the country that I love and says, oh my God, when other parts of the world can see where we're headed. And they were asking me, what the hell's going on? And I didn't have ready the answers that I should have concerning. The only thing I could say is I'm sorry. When I discovered, and I know I'm segueing on a different path, when I discovered
that's fine.
When I discovered that in Jamaica, abortion was illegal, and when I discovered in Jamaica their buggery laws, and if you know what that represents,
certainly,
that was illegal. And in America, we have a different thing going on. And that America, and when I went, Obama was president, USAID, in conjunction with Planned Parenthood, were passing cash for influence there to get them to change those laws. And the American embassy, our America embassy, on the main drag there in Kingston, was flying in June, which is recognized as Gay Pride Month, the Gay Pride flag immediately underneath the Union Jack.
Oh, wonderful.
And that was when Obama was in office. And with what's coming down the pike with you-know-who as president, for whatever length of time he is president before they...
someone else is installed?
Yeah, or they stick a prop up his, what, the whole prop him up, and he can maybe still speak from the... well, you guys covered it earlier, where we're headed. I just want to say, but on the upside, I want to say that that we must stand up, and maybe that's cliche to say, but we must do that. But we must fight, with platforms like yours, sir, to get the truth out. And when the people know the truth and hear the truth, that they're weaponized, and what I mean by that, in a way to act and do something. And otherwise, we will become that banana republic. And so as America goes, so goes the rest of the world. And so you asked me what was on my mind. I said nothing, but that was, so I just threw that out there. Now is the time, and now is the season. So it's encouraging to know individuals like yourself and SHR Media and what you all represent and what you're doing, and your followers across the nation, across the globe, for that matter. It gives me tremendous hope.
Mike Fitzpatrick, a final question to you. Leftists have been very successful in removing conservative voices from access to various forms of media. For example, on OAN today, it was indicated that Twitter suspended Michelle Malkin. They suspended the Gateway Pundit, and they suspended the Right Side Broadcasting Network accounts. My guess would be, until and unless Twitter changes, that's not just a hint or a suggestion. They're gone. They're not coming back. So Mike Fitzpatrick, somebody earlier in chat on Tuesday, was saying, well, these servers, Amazon servers, What about Oracle? Can we get another bank of servers somewhere as independent as possible that are not readily shut down by leftists? Is that just pie in the sky hope, Mike Fitzpatrick, or is there something else out there, maybe, sort of?
Well, the attractive part about AWS with Amazon or with Microsoft and their Azure platform is how fast you can actually spin up servers, how fast you can roll out new servers, build new servers, deploy new servers. The fact that you can have infrastructure as a service rather than having to have physical boxes, physical data centers, physical equipment to make all of it work as used to do it. It's easy, it's more cost effective with a Google, Azure, Microsoft than it is any other way of building your server infrastructure. And so there needs to be a competitor to those environments, but it has to be a competitor in the truest sense of the word, not just from a political point of view, but an actual service and performance and those kinds of things that everybody measures that technology against. So the unfortunate part is those things take time to do. I mean, Amazon Web Services, Azure from Microsoft, those things, and even Google has their own server platform. IBM has their own server platform. Those things didn't show up and materialize overnight. They took the better part of a decade to build out, with billions being spent. So, can you set up a server in a bathroom like someone else we know and actually, make it function? Sure, you could do that. Is it enterprise class? No, it's not. Does it have enterprise security? No, especially that bathroom server in Denver had no enterprise security to it. Again, none of this is going to be a fast response, because if it doesn't exist and you can't get access and you cannot have a home per se for your technology, it's really hard in this day and age.
Well, and Jack Alexander mentioned in chat just now, and try getting the bandwidth to even run a data center, which I'm guessing is an issue.
I know a guy where I can get bandwidth.
It's like, okay, I'm walking up to you on the sidewalk one day, Mike, and I walk up to you and I'm wearing a long trench coat, and all of a sudden I pull open my trench coat and I say, I got bandwidth. You need some bandwidth? I got some bandwidth.
I have access to dark fiber. I can get it. I know people.
He knows people. I know people that know some people. You know what I'm saying?
But that's where we are today.
That is where we are.
Yeah.
It's like pretty soon, I'll be walking up to Lonnie and within my, my long trench coat, and I'll open up my trench coat and my collar will be up and I'll have a hat clamped down on my head and I'll say, Lonnie, what? I have podcasts. What kind of podcasts are you looking for? I have some podcasts. Anybody around? Lonnie, let's go in the alley here. What kind of podcast are you interested in? I got this one. It's only $100.
Yeah.
We're almost there.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see where all of this goes. I mean, I share your concern on the dementia side of it. My dad had dementia, passed away from dementia. I've seen it up close and personal, and there is a lot there that is very simple. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I think the technology question, I really want to encourage people to think about their cybersecurity and their privacy through these social media platforms, through devices in their homes, whether it's Google, whether it's Alexa from Amazon, or even Siri, to that matter. I'm honestly evaluating some of the technology connections that I have and some of the tools that I use in making some changes. Again, to lessen my privacy footsteps or footprint. I'm actually exploring whether or not to get into the business of secure Linux phones for clients. I've got clients that are concerned that the government is going to go back to spying on their businesses. So it is interesting times, as they say. So I think that, find a way to detach from the convenience. Move from something from Gmail or Yahoo or some of the other free services to a paid service that's more secure. Switch your browser. Switch your search engine that you use. DuckDuckGo is great.
That's exactly what I've been doing recently. Is I wish I had the ability, and maybe I will someday. But I've been doing more and more searches with a specific tagline or a sentence, inserting it in Google, going over to DuckDuckGo, and I'm discovering exactly what it is that Google doesn't want me to see. And what I'm looking for, either A, I won't find it, or B, it's buried deep. And they don't want you to find it. They don't want you to find it. That's where we are. Mike Fitzpatrick, thank you very much for being here tonight. I greatly appreciate it, sir. Tell folks if they need cybersecurity consultation, where can you be found and reached, sir?
But BZ, thanks. It's always a pleasure to be with you, especially with Lonnie. Good to see him on the camera there in studio. If you want to reach us, the best place to get in touch with us is probably through our website, and that again is ncxgroup.com, ncxgroup.com.
Okay. Thank you for being here, sir, tonight, and I greatly appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Folks, that was Mike Fitzpatrick. Gosh, that's not it. Is it this microphone? No, it's not that microphone. Oh, okay. Now I know which microphone it is. Anyway, I've been getting some stuff in the background, and I thought it was on one other channel here. Now I know where it is. Now I think I can fix it. In any event, Lonnie, if you're doing anything next Thursday,
I'll be right here with you.
Okay. All right. Let me also throw
as
this.
long as the bar is well stocked.
Oh, it will be. It will be. Like I said, I got all that good stuff. Well drinks are in the front. The good stuff is in my collection in the cabinet. Right back here. Here's what I'm hoping. If you're hearing Thursday, I am trying to get Kurt Schlichter here. He's been on the show about 5 or 6 times before. Kurt Schlichter is a riot on this show. It's like Kurt Schlichter unplugged. And no, he's not playing an acoustic guitar. Kurt Schlichter unplugs. Now, I haven't seen him since all this ridiculous crap has occurred. It's been at least 6 months. And so much has happened in the past 6 months. I'm going to try to see if I can get Kurt Schlichter on here. And if I can, we're going to have a very interesting Thursday night next week. So, folks, Monday night, I'm going to have a show. It may be completely about gaslighting. I'll let you figure that out. I'm in the process of attempting to assemble that right now. Hoping to get Kurt Schlichter by next Thursday. But in any event, I think at this point, what I need to do is this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, pull that back thing. There you go, a little bit too loud. Children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter. I am really, really active on Twitter, at BZEP. at BZEP. I'm also on Megabook and MeWe. I like Gab, but I tell you what, Gab has been going up and down a lot. Promotional consideration is also by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and also by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also by Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Tiaras, as per normal, are by My Little Pony. And thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour, you can make bank on that one. Kettle One, somebody tried some the other night and they said, this stuff is smooth. No kidding. Hey, thanks to Lonnie Poindexter for being here tonight. Thanks to Mike Fitzpatrick. Thanks to you for listening. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.